Hi students, once again I am back with another short video on Amigo brothers. This is the third session. This is the third video. In the last video, we discussed how these two young friends decided to separate themselves and practice separately before the very important match in their life, the division finals. How they separated themselves, how they practiced separately before the match, their feelings, their anxiety and agony on the eve of the boxing match, how they tried to control their mind, prepare their mind, how they wanted to win the match in the very first round itself in order to spare their friends hurt. All these things were discussed in the last session. Today I am going to discuss the various arrangements made for this boxing match and how these two young friends conducted themselves in the division finals, how they fought particularly in the first round of the match, the first round of the division finals. Now I move on to the text. Just listen to this reading. Large posters plastered all over the walls of local shops announced the fight between Antonio Cruz and Felix Vargas as the main bout. The fight had created great interest in the neighborhood. Antonio and Felix were well liked and respected. Each had his own loyal following. The fight was scheduled to take place in Tompkins Square Park. The morning of the fight, Tompkins Square was a beehive of activity with numerous workers setting up the ring, the seats, and the guest speakers stand. The scheduled bouts began shortly after noon, and the park had begun filling up even earlier. Large posters were plastered all over the walls of the local shops, and these posters announced the match between Antonio Cruz and Felix Vargas. The match had created great interest in the neighborhood because they were well liked and respected by the people in the neighborhood, the people in the vicinity. These two young friends were well liked and respected, admired by the people because they were positive. They were hardworking. They had that beautiful dream of becoming the lightweight champion of the world. Apart from that, they were well disciplined. Because of that, each of these boxers had his own loyal following. They had their own loyal following. What do you mean by the expression loyal following? Loyal following means admirers or fans. These boxers had their own admirers. They had their own fans. In the morning of that match between these two young boxers, the Tompkins Square Park was a beehive of activity. So the match was scheduled to take place in Tompkins Square Park. There are so many such square parks in US. You might have heard about some of those square parks. Washington Square Park in Washington DC, Tompkins Square Park in Manhattan in New York, Madison Square Park again in New York. So these are some of the famous square parks in US, and this match was scheduled to take place in Tompkins Square Park. What is the meaning of the word scheduled? Scheduled means planned. It refers to the time and way in which something is done, something is conducted. There is another expression in the text. The Tompkins Square Park was a beehive of activity. What do you mean by the expression beehive? Beehive means a box which is constructed for keeping bees. But here the expression is beehive of activity. What do you mean by that expression beehive of activity? Beehive of activity means a place where there are so many people working very hard. Innumerable activities were going on in Tompkins Square Park. So many workers were there. They were very busy, they were very active. They were arranging the seats, they were arranging the ring, the guest speaker stand, etc. The match was scheduled to take place in the afternoon, but the place had begun filling up even earlier. People had started to flow in because these two young boxers were well liked by the people in the neighborhood. They had strong, loyal followers. They had strong admirers and fans. Now I move on to the next few paragraphs in the story. The waiting time was over. Felix was escorted from the classroom by a dozen fans in white t-shirts. Antonio was escorted down a different stairway and guided through a rope of path. As the two climbed into the ring, the crowd exploded with a roar. Antonio and Felix both bowed gracefully and then raised their arms in acknowledgement. Antonio tried to be cool. He turned slowly to meet Felix's eyes looking directly into his. Felix nodded his head and Antonio responded. The waiting time was over. Felix Vargas was escorted to the Tompkins Square Park to the boxing ring by a dozen of his fans. And these fans were in white t-shirts. And Antonio Cruz was escorted by his fans down a different stairwell. Stairwell means the part of a building which consists of the staircase. So he was escorted by his fans down a different stairwell. Both of them climbed to the boxing ring and the crowd exploded with a roar. The crowd reacted with a loud noise. Antonio and Felix, they acknowledged the presence of the other by nodding their heads. They also bowed to the spectators. They bent their heads toward the spectators to acknowledge the appreciation of the encouragement of the spectators. Now I move on to the next paragraph, which describes the beginning of the first round of the boxing match, the beginning of the first round of the division finals between these two young boxers. Boom, boom, boom. The roar turned to stillness. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer spoke slowly. Now is the moment we have all been waiting for. The main event between two fine young Puerto Rican fighters. In this corner weighing 134 pounds, Felix Vargas, and in this corner weighing 133 pounds, Antonio Cruz. The winner will represent the boys club in the Tournament of Champions, the Golden Gloves. There will be no draw. May the best man win. The cheering of the crowd shook the window panes of the old buildings surrounding Tompkins Square Park. At the center of the ring, the referee was giving instructions to the youngsters. Keep your punches up, no low blows, no punching on the back of the head. Keep your heads up, understand? Let us have a clean fight. Now shake hands and come out fighting. Both youngsters struck gloves and nodded. They turned and danced quickly to their corners. The bell rang. Bong, bong, bong. The announcement goes like this. Ladies and gentlemen, now is the moment we have been waiting for. The match between two young Puerto Rican fighters. What do you mean by Puerto Rican fighters? Puerto Rico is a Caribbean island, which is a territory of the United States of America. The people of Puerto Rico have been citizens since 1970, and they can travel freely from the island to the mainland and from the mainland to the island. So these two young boxers were Puerto Ricans. So the spectators were going to witness the fight between these two young Puerto Rican fighters. As it was an elimination bout, only one could win, and that person would represent the boys' club in the very important tournament. In that tournament, the Tournament of the Champions Golden Gloves Tournament. The announcement made the spectators explode with frenzy. They cheered. They cheered the two young boxers. They shouted for joy, encouragement, and appreciation. The window pane shook because of this shouting of the crowd. The window panes of the old buildings near the Tompkins Square Park shook because of the shouting of these people, spectators. The referee was giving the instructions to the two young boxers in the ring. There were 12 rules of boxing, and he cited these 12 rules to the young boxers. No hitting below the belt. You should not hit below the waistline in boxing. No punches on the back of the head. You have to fight in a fair way. All these instructions were given to the young boxers by the referee. The two boxers, they nodded their heads. They moved towards the corners. There are 4 corners in a boxing ring. One corner is the red corner and the other corner is the blue corner. And these 2 corners will be occupied by the boxers. The red corner by one boxer and the blue corner by the other boxer. There are 2 white corners, and these white corners are called the neutral corners, and one of these corners will be occupied by the referee. So they danced back to their respective corners. Now I move on to the next few paragraphs in the story. Bong, bong, round 1. Felix and Antonio turned and faced each other squarely in a fighting pose. Felix wasted no time. He came in fast, head low, half hunched toward his right shoulder, and lashed out with a straight left. He missed a right course as Antonio slipped the punch and countered with 3 lefts that snapped Felix's head back, sending a mild shock coursing through him. If Felix had any small doubt about their friendship affecting their fight, it was being neatly dispelled. Antonio's left hand was like a piston pumping jabs one right after another with a seeming ease. Felix bobbed and weaved and never stopped boring him. He knew that at long range he was at a disadvantage. Antonio had too much reach on him. Only by coming in close could Felix hope to achieve the dreamed of knockout. The bell rang, bong bong, which announced the beginning of the first round. Antonio and Felix, they came close and stood squarely. Squarely means directly in a fighting pose, in a fighting position. Felix was very quick. He moved towards Antonio half hunched. Half hunch means his body was slightly bent and his shoulders slightly raised. He moved towards Antonio quickly and tried to hit him with his left hand. But Antonio slipped and he countered the punches of Felix with 3 stunning left punches, and those 3 punches landed on the face of Felix Vargas, and as a result, a mild shiver ran across the entire body of Felix Vargas. If Felix had any doubt regarding the friendship affecting the match, that doubt was being neatly dispelled there. That doubt was now eliminated from his mind, and he realized that Antonio would be a different man, a different opponent with a different face in the ring. He realized that Antonio would fight very hard in the ring. Another expression is there in the text. Antonio's left hand was like a piston pumping jabs one after another. Piston means a part of an engine which moves up and down. So it was like a piston which was pumping jabs one after another. He was very good at using his left hand, and he was using his left hand with seeming ease. Felix resorted to various defensive tactics. He bobbed, he weaved. He bobbed and weaved. Bobbed means he moved up and down to evade the punishing blows from Antonio. Weaved means he moved from one side to the other side to avoid some of these powerful jabs from Antonio Cruz. And he tried his level best to come close to Antonio Cruz because he knew that at a long range he would be at a disadvantage, because Antonio had an advantage as a boxer here because he was very tall and he had a greater reach, and Felix Vargas knew that he would be at a disadvantage because Antonio had a long reach. So he tried to come close to Antonio Cruz so that he could accomplish his dream of knockout. He could accomplish his goal only if he could come close to Antonio Cruz. Now I move on to the next few paragraphs in the story Amigo Brothers by Thierry Thomas. Antonio knew the dynamic that was stored in his Amigo Brothers fist. He ducked a short right and missed a left hook. Felix trapped him against the ropes just long enough to pour some punishing rights and lefts to Antonio's hard midsection. Antonio slipped away from Felix, crashing two lefts to his head, which set Felix's right ear ringing. Felix walked briskly back to his corner. Antonio gracefully danced his way toward his stool. Antonio knew the dynamite that was stored in his friend's fist. The meaning of the word dynamite. Dynamite is an explosive substance. So he knew the explosive power which was stored in the fist of Felix Vargas, his friend. And he was well aware of that explosive power of the fist of his friend, amigo brother Felix Vargas. Fist means the clenched hand, the closed hand. That's the meaning of the word fist. Felix Vargas was very strong and powerful, and Antonio realized it. He ducked a short right from Felix Vargas. So these are all various strategies in boxing match. Duck means to bend down in order to avoid a blow from the opponent. He ducked a short right and missed a left hook. But soon, Felix Vargas trapped. He was successful in trapping Antonio against the ropes just long enough to send some powerful lefts and rights to the hard midsection of Antonio. Finally, Antonio slipped away from the powerful jabs of Felix Vargas and he was able to hit Felix Vargas on his face. And that made Felix Vargas' ear ringing. Felix Vargas moved briskly back to his corner and Antonio Cruz danced gracefully to his respective corner. And this marked the end of the first round. So in the first round, these two young boxers started fighting very hard. Their friendship did not affect the match. Immediately after the match commenced, they realized that their friendship would not affect the match. They started fighting very hard. They started fighting a very tough match here. So, in the next session, we will discuss the other two rounds, the second round and third round of this boxing match. We will also discuss who would be going to win this match, the division finals, who would be going to represent the boys club at the Golden Gloves Championship, etc. That is all for the day. Thank you.